Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Nieuwe Instituut, which is the National Institute and Museum for Architecture, Design, and Digital Culture. My name is Ramon Amaro. I'm the Senior Researcher for Digital Culture here at the Institute, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here this evening. And it's also a great pleasure to continue our ongoing partnership with the Institut Français Netherlands. We have a very interesting and exciting and particularly relevant, right? It's like a lightsaber, right? I want to kind of wield it. I'll put it there. There we go. We're particularly excited about this event, especially given the current state of digital culture in the Netherlands and outside of the Netherlands in the world. And the topics that we will be speaking on today are of utter importance to the future, not only of digital culture, but of the planet in itself. There's a lot to discuss today, but I won't take up too much time. I just wanted to give you a formal introduction, especially on behalf of our General and Artistic Director, Eric Chin, and give you a very warm welcome. I'm also very excited that we have created the opportunity for you to play the game of the Institut Français Netherlands prize winner of the European Permacomputing Game Jam, Sasha Mattner. Where's Sasha? Where are you? Hey! You'll learn more about the prize and the game, and hopefully you'll enjoy playing it downstairs in -1. I'd also like to give a special thank you to the -1 team. Ben is our researcher. Where's Ben? Ben, are you there? There's Ben. Hi, Ben. Is our researcher for digital culture, and Thomas is our exhibition producer for the -1 team. Those of you that had a tour, I hope you enjoyed the tour of the space. Those of you that didn't, the space is open during normal museum hours, and there might be a chance for you to see the space when you play the game later today. So that's all, and welcome.
I love the saber thing. Welcome, everyone. My name is François Croquette. I'm the new director of the Institut Français in the Netherlands, and I'm delighted to join you for this event. I'll just say a few words, actually, to thank all the people who organized this and who made it possible to have this roundtable and discuss permacomputing. I should start with our partners at the Nieuwe Instituut and -1. Raman has just spoken. Ben, Thomas, thank you very much for your help in putting together this event. We've also been lucky to work with Vincent Moulinet, who's masterminded the program with the team of the French Institute, Eva, Bernie, Pascal. Thank you very much for, again, making it possible to have this dialogue. We want to keep it as open as possible, so I won't take too much of your time. Just to say that this event takes part in the framework of an event that is happening worldwide, organized by the French Institute in 90 countries, I think, and 150 cities around the world. It's called Novembre numérique, so that's Digital November for you. And it's about thinking on what the digital words allows us to do, of course, but also it's about the limits. And this is one of the topics that we wanted to share with you. What are the limits of this digital world that we're just starting to understand? In my previous job, I've just joined the French Institute. I was working with the city of Paris on ecological issues. And when I realized that one of the data centers that's just outside Paris, it's got to be outside, of course, because we don't want this to be inside our city. It's big, it's huge, and it's not very nice to see, but it's using the energy of about 25% of a nuclear plant. It's huge, and so we've got to take this into account. We've got to start maybe thinking outside the box when it comes to the use that we make of the digital tools that are at our disposal. And I think this event, it's about playing, first and foremost. but it's also about being responsible, trying to act in a more frugal way, and we think it's possible. And I mean, the first contacts, the first discussions that I could see happening lead me to believe that yes, there's a lot that we could do together, and really this is what we hope this event will bring about. So I'll stop there just to say that today is the first stage of this tour of the Netherlands. That tomorrow will be in Utrecht, and on Thursday in Amsterdam to follow up on this event. And so there'll be other meetings. We hope other projects coming from those encounters. But for the time being, I'll let Vincent introduce the rest of the event. There's a prize, as we've said before, and it's an important award. And then let the games begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, François. Thank you very much to you all for being here and for the wonderful organization of Institut Français and Nieuwe Instituut. To me, it's also, I'm a bit emotional to be here talking about permacomputing, because Rotterdam is certainly the city where there are the most people researching on this. When I first came to Rotterdam to meet with people last year, or the beginning of the year actually, to start studying this project, I didn't know where it would lead us. And actually there's been a lot of things happening. For example, the European Permacomputing Game Jam that happened last month in 8 cities in Europe. That was imposed by Fabula, which is a company I used to work for, and I. So that happened at Forum in Rotterdam, that happened at ICANN and SAD in Paris, at HED in Geneva, at MOPA in Arles with several schools also, in Utrecht, at Creative Coding Utrecht, in Berlin at the UDK, in Vienna at the Angewandte, and at Fluid Space Marseille. So 150 people actually spent 48 hours making video games, and with most of them engines that they had never used before, because they tried to use open source software and try to build like very lightweight games. And so that was a kind of experimentation for everyone, and I think it's the idea also behind permacomputing is experimenting with technology and trying to change the shifts on the way we use technology. And why do we use this? Why do we use video games to talk about this? It's because with permacomputing we're also addressing the limitation of our environment, and it's not always a very funny topic to address. Most of the time it asks for people a lot of work, and playing and making games, playing while making games. Sometimes it's not always very playful to make games, it can be very hard. But I think in this 48 hours that was kind of playful to do. It can also be a good entrance to this kind of topics. Also, why working with video games? I'm a game designer and I'm a curator, also Festival Octobre numérique in Arles, in the south of France. And we've been working with the intersection of video games and contemporary arts for quite a few years now. And yeah, I mean, video games is responsible for a lot of CO2 emissions. This is the first creative industry in the world. It's more important in terms of money and amount of consumers than all the creative industries together. And one thing that is very important to know is that 97% of the consumption of artificial energy of video games come from its consumption, not from its production. Because the industry pushes the standards to some maximalist aesthetics, which requires new hardware to be bought, etc. And so there was a huge need to reconsider the way we make video games, and probably making very lightweight games that like the 29 games that have been produced during this European Permacomputing Game Jam that run on a browser, on a web browser, on very old computers, sometimes not updated computers, is a very interesting thing because it also encourages players to not buy new computers to play the new games. So yeah, and I would like to thank again Institut Français to be a partner of this game jam. Oh, I will introduce this. You can play the games on itch.io. Some of the games are accessible on your smartphones. All the games are accessible on your browser. So this is one thing. At the end of the month, there is a tracks episode that was shot at Fluid Space in Marseille also, that will be released on Arte. And there will be a next edition, of course, in 2025, and we would like to expand the network of institutions, schools, art organizations who want to partner with us to create those decentralized hubs that can host players, to also federate the community of regenerative game designers around them. So yeah, this we can talk about later. But I think now it's time to give the prize of the French Institute to our dear... Maybe we can have some sound on this? I don't know. The music is super nice. Anyway, can we welcome Sasha Mattner and give her a big applause for being part of this Fluid Space community who've made L'Impasse. Yes, you chose the hard way. So no music? No, apparently no. Yay, you have flowers.
Thank you so much. Well, it's amazing. I really want to thank all the team at Fluid Space because I'm here because of them. We did all of this together. So Misha, Circe, Chloé, Lorca, Nikita, Bobby, and Jeanne. It was such an amazing time working together. I still feel like we spent a week together, even if it was just 48 hours. And it was really amazing.
But you probably had the amount of work of a week.
Yeah,
actually.
like you said, developing video games is really hard. It is really, really resource intensive. So, yeah. And it was really amazing.
But maybe we could play the game together. Yes. You know what? We have a. There's a lot of organization going on. Also, I would like to invite all the speakers of the talk to join us because we're going to play the game, L'Impasse.
I brought Chloe supplied us with a Game Boy, if you want to play it on an original Game Boy, because that's how we... that's the studio the game engine we used is one to develop on the Game Boy. So it runs on this original hardware.
Yeah, so if the bad students of the room want to play Game Boy while we talk, you can. It's actually made for it. There's always someone doing this. So do you want to join us also? Yeah. Marie Verdeil is joining us. She's a resident at -1 at downstairs with the nerds, doing a lot of experimentation. We're going to talk about a little bit later. Klaas Kuitenbrouwer is, I hope I pronounce it right, is senior researcher at Nieuwe Instituut, working on ZOOP. And Benjamin Earl is also researcher at -1. So yeah, please find a seat. And could we have some sound on the game, maybe a little bit? No? That's a no. That's sad. Okay. And could we have like the other friends of Fluid Space on the screen? Yeah. Hello. Huh? Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
In the vase, yeah, there's a vase.
Maybe if we put the mic next to the speakers.
Sounds like a terrible idea. Ah. Is this? I don't think we have a lot of sound. Oh yes, we do. Yeah. Yeah, just. And of course, I put the French version, but they have made an English version in the night just for you. So I think it's also like the team has been working so hard until today to make this happen. Yeah, and you have full. So you can use this keyboard if you like.
All right.
Yeah.
I know the game by heart for now.
Oh.
Maybe if someone else wants to play it.
Does someone want to play the game? You want to play the game? Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is like this.
Yeah, and you use W to enter. Yeah.
So here I can.
J is working quite well. Yeah, there's a lot of keys on the keyboard actually, so you should try J.
Is the keyboard?
Oh, maybe the keyboard is not working. Oh, come on. That's the thing, you know, with technology, huh? We add... Why are we doing this? We're adding a lot of troubles to this situation. So Jay is working here. Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
in French.
But maybe the French version works better. Sasha, do you want to give a little bit more of context on this game?
Yeah, sure. So all the events of the game happen in Impasse del Pêche, which is a closed-off street in the 3rd arrondissement of Marseille. And it's a very peculiar district because there's a lot of stuff happening there, especially with drug traffic and police, and there's a lot of news coverage inside of this peculiar street. So we decided that the game would take place there, and it would take the place of.
You can go.
It would take the place of rats, seagulls, cockroaches. We would take all these kind of parasite and we would turn them into protagonists of our story. And we would make them visit the street and talk with each other and interact and make us discover this kind of little niche that we have. So the Fluid Space Studio is located in this in there, and so we designed this kind of little scenes. You can interact with the cockroaches, and they have. If you press J on them, you have little. They'll tell you a little story in French.
Say there is some leftover pizza.
So,
covered with green mold, yeah. It's basically the cockroach Instagram, isn't it?
exactly.
It is.
It's a parasite Instagram, and yeah, and so what we did with the team is, yeah, kind of give life and breathe life into something that's usually disregarded and forgotten. And also, what's kind of important is Marseille is kind of the perfect example of a city where a lot of institutions have failed. So a lot of people built the tools and the spaces, the care spaces especially, that we need, since the officials ones were just non-functional. So I think that this resonates a lot into this kind of nobody wants to hear from us, nobody wants to see us, and it's an idea that I think was really infused into our team and this project.
If I remember well, when you arrived at Fluid Space, because I was there also for the shooting of tracks, when we arrived at Fluid Space, there was a lot of cops in the way, also blocking
That's the
dead
first
end.
scene.
So yeah, so that's the first scene, and that was kind of weird to be in a kind of hacker space, also dedicated to femme and LGBT and transgender people, to have to cross this lot of cops, actually. And there is not only the cops, there's also like a surveillance camera at the corner of the street. That's, I think, something you can feel in this game, like the kind of joyful resistance to this kind of oppression.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this kind of nobody likes cameras, and kind of playing around them and trying to repurpose them, and using a lot of humor to kind of break this constant surveillance is I think the best way of kind resistance.
Uh-huh. And well, there I think Marie, you will need a little bit of help, because you have to go on the smoke of the of the trash. Yeah, find your way. Yeah, let's just get around this.
The hitbox is not super clear.
Oh, come on.
That's part of it, that's part of it.
And so what is this creature that you drive through the game?
So at first, it's supposed to be this mouse cursor that's literally a mouse and a rat in this case. And it slowly evolves into this mutant shape. It gains wings, it gains antennas, it becomes this kind of hybrid between rats, seagulls, and cockroaches.
Okay, and how did you, who did this? What Chloe and Bobby are making some weird signs on the screen. I think they try to express some cockroach language or something. I don't oh yeah, this is the
This is the final creature.
rat, cockroach, seagull. There's a special word in Marseille also to talk about the seagull. It's gabion.
Yeah, it's gabion. Exactly.
It's a weird creature. Like, there's a lot of legends on them. They're wild. They can steal animals from the street, like cats. You know, like, you never know what they do. There's legends on it. So this creature is half a gabion, half a cockroach, half a rat, and live its joyful life next to the burning trash, yeah, of Lampas. And how went the collaboration? Because you've been a lot of people. I know, like, a 48 hours game jam is not easy to create a team with people. And having so many people on the team during this. Also, most of you didn't know each other, I think, at the beginning of the game. And none of you had ever used Game Boy Studio before. So that's a big challenge. How did it happen? Like,
kind
for
of
the
still amazed that we managed to pull this off, because it was really, none of us knew each other except for a couple of people, and everyone just managed to find, oh, I could work on this, I could work on this, and we had this kind of like, there were no hierarchy in our workflow. It was very linear. Somehow we exactly knew how to talk and how to also take care of each other. every time we had this, when we eat it together, we had this moment where we were like, okay, let's do a turn around the table and speak. How do you feel right now? How would you like things to go? And yeah, this kind of really working with a lot of empathy and understanding how we work and how we can take care of each other. That was, I'd say, our main drive during the project.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving more context to this game. And so, yeah, I think also one very touching point is that the game now is playable at -1 today. And I think it's very relevant with what you do in a way at -1, meaning talking about ongoing practices, experimental things that needs to be kind of play tested in their context, like with the public. Benjamin, I'd like you maybe to tell us a little bit more about -1 and this idea of maybe playtesting the arts.
Maybe it's first good to say that the game downstairs is also playable on some computers that were going to be thrown away from the Nieuwe Instituut, and so they've become these unused computers. So this game is not necessarily on a Game Boy, unfortunately, but it's somehow fitting with permacomputing that you can still play it on these computers. But yeah, the fact that it's the fact that we managed also to make a space to play the game, I think, is kind of interesting in an exhibition space, because traditionally an exhibition is something that doesn't change. You set it up, you open it, and it's kind of there for everybody to see for a certain period of time. -1 is this space that constantly evolves and constantly adapts and constantly changes depending on what's going on inside of it. So in this instance, you'll be able to go downstairs and play the game, but in other instances where we have residents like Marie doing things down there, whether it's developing new antennas or cantennas or anything else that any of the other residents are doing, the space adapts to them, and we find it important in order to make that space adaptable, because the process is the most important part for us. It doesn't matter so much about the output. It doesn't matter so much about the thing that comes out. It's really about the way of working together. So it's really interesting to hear Sasha's kind of reflections on that process, because that's the really important part for us. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, cool.
And just how do you, at -1, how do you develop this kind of very flexible approaches to the art? Because you're both like a place for residencies, a place for exhibitions, a place for research. I think there's something very striking in the fact that there's a lot of practices relying on a regenerative approach, like Klaas will talk about maybe a little bit later. Does it have some kind of impact on the way you make and the way you choose to throw the arts to the public at some point, instead of just having like this 8-month reflection on what are we going to show?
Yeah, I mean, the -1 in this sense is a place that's always in process. So the idea of being able to react to something is integral to the way that we function. So even our meetings become kind of like these weird experimental places where we workshop things together, we try out things together in ways that aren't necessarily the standard meeting space that we are normally used to necessarily. But it also means we also function as quite a small team. There's 3 people, Ramon, Thomas, and myself, who are part of it. And we know the space kind of inside out, in a sense. So when we do need to make things happen, we can make things happen to a certain extent, with working within the limits of what actually we have created ourselves. So the technology that we have is either borrowed or it's technology that is given to us is that instead of it being thrown away. So when we begin to prototype things, or when other people are prototyping things, it's always about first observing actually what's there and what we can actually use and what we can make use of. and also the time and the space and the energy that is there for it to be made. And then it's about making a space that can also be about playing and about kind of prototyping in a way that doesn't necessarily lead to a certain outcome. So this reaction, the ability to be able to react to what is going on around us isn't kind of, it's a way that's kind of built into the protocols and the functionality of the space, both technically, infrastructurally, but also socially in the way that the team functions.
And in your own practice also, I think this is something that we can see. For example, you do these workshops of coding in situ, not only workshops, but also as a personal practice. Can you maybe tell a little bit more about that and if it reflects on maybe your activity as a researcher at -1?
Yeah, interesting. I haven't actually thought about connecting those two things together, but they are really linked. So coding in situ is this idea of developing digital tools and digital software that is done in an alignment or in collaboration with external factors in the environment that you're surrounded in. So instead of the traditional idea of the developer being in the developer studio or in Silicon Valley and then making stuff that is then proliferated around the world, it's instead putting the developer into the environment that they're developing something for. So in this very small practice that I have called Coding in Situ, I myself am the developer that I put into different situations. But the idea is that if I am to develop a website for a collective based in Italy, which is the one example that I can give at the moment, the idea is that the whole website is developed in that space with those people affected by those environmental factors, whether it be weather factors, whether it be social factors, economical factors. ROBIDA stands for FISL. FISL? It's ROBIDA Collective.
It's not the one.
No.
Oh, wow. Nice website
cool.
then.
I mean, this would be a nice version of the website, but actually, no, this isn't it. Yeah, that's the one. So the website itself mirrors many parts of the village that the collective are part of. So like the trestle, the kind of the way of navigating it horizontally is based on the different parts of the village because they have these kind of stagnating levels that used to be for developing wine. The scrolling bar at the bottom is to signal people's presence in the village, because when we were in the village, we realized we could tell who was home by the smoke coming from their chimneys. And if you were to go to the people page, you have this like multicolored version of what is, if you click on one of the people, and then if you go to the top left, and then click on people.
Is it a DJ village?
That's kind of. You have this kind of like multicolored variety of all the people that are actually have visited this city at some point, this village at one point or another. But the process of creating it stems from this idea of site writing, which is an architectural term that was kind of coined by someone called Jane Rendell, who says that to write architecture criticism in a way that is done from the site of critique itself. So going to the building that you're critiquing, by going there and writing the critique whilst you're in the building itself, you begin to have embodied connections with the space, so that your writing begins to inhabit the space itself, so other people can also inhabit it. So the idea was, how can we take that practice and apply it to the act of writing code, essentially? And that's where the idea of coding in situ comes from, and how this website came about.
I like this example because in terms of permacomputing, maybe I've missed a little bit of context on this idea. But let's say I will not do the whole historical speech on this notion that is 3 years old now. That would be too long. But there is this idea of making a parallel between agriculture and computation, and the way that problems can be addressed when it comes to computation. Like for example, in massive agriculture, we address problems with situations that create most of the time more artificial energy consumptions or more problems, etc. And in computation, it's most of the time the same thing, and also it can be due to the fact that we always think that computation has to be the solution for the problem that we have. Most of the time, maybe we should just not do with computers. And so it advocates for more situated approaches. Just like in permaculture, when you have to work with your own terrain or landscape, you will learn what is part of your landscape, the whole environment, not only the landscape, but the whole living ecosystem in there. And then you will compose with this to create your own technique. You will not follow a huge method that you will apply in your thing. And same for permacomputing, you will use the best technology, but the minimal one for your situated problem. For example, this computer here, my computer, is a very bad example, because for making this presentation, we're using a huge gaming laptop. I'm a gamer, I don't have 2 laptops, sorry. So there is this need of creating very situated approaches, just like you did, working with the resources of this village. There is this idea of when it's cloudy, you cannot access the internet in this village also.
Yeah, so the village has an antenna on the side of one of the buildings because it's so remote, and that's how they get their internet. So when the weather is bad, the Wi-Fi is bad because the cloud cover interferes with the signal coming in from the satellites.
Yeah, so technology cannot be accessible 24/7, that's a thing.
Exactly, you can't have a video call when the rain is there. So.
No, which is sometimes a good news. This, I think, situated approaches is something that we can find also in the work of Klaas Kuytenbrouwer with the Zoonomic Institute. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about this? And maybe, sorry, I will just go... anticipate the next question, because you also work with institutions that deal a lot with technology, and also I'd like to know how you bridge this idea of Zoop and technology in institutions.
Yeah, funny enough, your little tour, the minimal circuit, actually goes to CCU tomorrow, which is also a Zoop. This is a Zoop. This is the first Zoop in the world, but CCU is as well. And then the third day you go to the Waag Future Lab, which is not yet a Zoop, but will be in the coming months. We didn't know this when this was planned, but it turns out this way. I was struck actually by the similarities between the Zoop practice and the way you described both -1 and computation in situ. It's really very close. Uses different means, but the basic logic is very similar. Yeah. So Zoop is an organization form that is adopted here. It's actually a practice, so it's what you do as a Zoop is you include the interests of the life that is touched by your work. You include a vocalization, a spokesperson for the interest of this life. You include such a person in your organization. That this person becomes part of your decision making. So, in a way, what you do is to acknowledge you're a participant. This is the key, the fundament. You acknowledge that you're a participant in ecosystems and that you're responsible for the quality of the ecological relations you're in. And this responsibility requires a kind of reciprocity. So you seek a way, as a Zoop, all Zoops do this, you seek a way to become symbiotic. So to learn to transform your practice step by step so that it might contribute to the health of these ecosystems that you're part of. This fundamentally addresses a lot of, let's say, the larger issues you addressed also at the beginning, the larger issues related to computation as the fundamental accelerator of the speed of the economy. And Moore's law is about the same as the growth rate of the, well, not entirely, but one follows the other. So computation poses a really big, if you want to learn this, if you want to learn how to become symbiotic, then computation becomes this massive set of issues. Like, how can you work with that and still, let's say, even pretend that you're working towards symbiosis? So, and then permacomputing seems to be, a container term. Let's be a little bit non-specific for the moment. a container term that at least addresses an attempt to bridge, to find a reciprocity between the potential, the agency of technology and the agency of ecology. And then situatedness is crucial. Use what you have, but also find reciprocal relationships. It's not so. There's a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of different levels on which you can take this, like from salvage computing, making waste useful again. This is one of the key principles. Also, work with modular systems so that not everything has to go at once, but just things can be replaced. So basically, materials become valuable if you treat them in a modular logic. But on larger scales, it gets a little bit more difficult. Yeah.
So also to give a little bit of context on ZOOP at Creative Coding Utrecht, the idea of ZOOP is to have a speaker for the living in the organization. This is not the only idea, but this is one of the ideas. To have a speaker for the living in your organization. And so the person, like most of the time, these are landscape architects, biologists, but at Creative Coding, it's a special kind of speaker for the living, right?
Well, they're all special.
Sure. Sorry.
And the fact that they're all landscape architects also has to do with the kind of organizations that became ZOOP first. So, in a way, it's not only that you have to have certain ecological sensibility, but you also have to fit the specificities of the organization, so that we have a huge background in design and architecture. So a landscape architect makes sense for what Nieuwe Instituut is as a ZOOP. Same goes for instance, Kunstfort bij Vijfhuizen, which is this huge old fortress. It's a heritage site. There's a lot of ties in with the history of architecture. So it makes sense in a way that these. But it's different for Creative Coding Utrecht because they work in the field of coding. So we needed somebody who is both, let's say, sensitive to basically somebody who feels comfortable with representing. Vocalizing the needs of the life that is touched by the work of Creative Coding Utrecht, but who's also literate in computation. So it's a different kind of person you're looking for. So Teun Karels, who was actually one of the also original co-developers of the ZOOP model, he was here with the first series of workshops. He has this fantastic practice, augmented ecology. Like he's been working in this field for years already. So he was. Seemed very suitable. Also, Creative Coding Utrecht and Teun know each other pretty well, so this is also that they can trust each other already. This is helpful. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And also, you told me a little bit earlier about analog computation, because I know you are not always a supporter of doing computation over computation as a solution for things, which I think we all agree on. And I thought it was very interesting, this idea of analog computation. Could you a little bit develop on this?
I got this from the book Analogia by George Dyson that I would highly recommend. It's fantastic. George Dyson, the son of Freeman Dyson. Yeah.
Not Dyson, the vacuum cleaner Dyson.
Sorry?
Not vacuum, the Dyson man who makes the vacuum cleaners.
No,
James
that's a different Dyson. No, a different one. Yeah. Who grew up in Princeton, whose father is famous for computational theory, and who is he's a little bit of had a funny childhood because he grew up in the midst of these mathematical geniuses, and this was normal for him. And but he also grew up in the woods of Princeton. Later, he became a canoe builder, and he kind of resisted had the pressures of his parents and his surrounding, and took a completely different road, went complete hippie and independent and autarkic, and then became a historian of technology. He wrote a famous book also about the history of the internet, the history of computation. I don't know, Turing's Nightmare? No, not Turing's. Well, Turing's Cathedral. Sorry, different. That's his book he wrote as well. Anyway, he's now kind of like many people in the field. I also have a history in digital culture. This was actually my kind of professional field for a long time. Like many in the people, and in a way, kind of cybernetics sets you up for this. You know, if you kind of seep yourself in the logic of cybernetics, you become sensitive to this. There's no way out. You begin to understand ecology a little bit. And like the situated approach is like very similar. But then you begin to realize that actually computation does a lot of harm to the near future of to the current and also near future of the planet, and that we need to figure a way to do things differently. So Dyson, in a way, has the same. So, and he wrote this book. It's called and one of the famous examples, and maybe this is the best way to tell what the book is about, because it's also a little bit the conclusion. So there's this famous canoe built by the Aleut. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's like the people from the island group in between Alaska and Russia. So there's the Bering Strait. And they have this canoe, which is the fastest canoe in the world. It's the most aquadynamic thing that's ever built. And no computational process is able to improve anything on the design of this canoe. It's actually better, even if they started calculating, they figure out, oh, then they make all kinds of assumptions, and they figure out, no, actually this does it better. So how is it possible to, let's say, if you assume that computation can do things that humans can't, that you need all kinds of mathematical modeling and then optimize, and then you find the actual solution, and that no matter how far you go along that road, what you already have is better. Like, how does that, in something that seems like a computational problem, like aquadynamics, it's very kind of famous, like for it, but we need modeling. This is what we're good at in computation. So, and then he realizes how this was possible when he canoes in one of those Aleut canoes at night in the area also where they originally built, and he sees that in the water there's these bacteria that are luminescent. So every time you move the water, you see these swirls. So basically, you can see the flows of the water around your canoe. So you can basically see when it works or not. You can see where there's friction and when there isn't. So you have a complete analog loop of awareness and experimentation that you can just follow in a very short process, which is, funny enough, very similar to the way, aquadynamics would be modeled with luminescent vector, dynamic vectors or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you can it's already there. It was already there. So and there's no way to improve on this. So this immediate awareness is just a big, is always faster and more, let's say, accurate, and because it is the presence of these things that already talks to us, not their representation that talk to other representations, but you have to translate back. So you always lose if you think, let's say, computation is more optimal than what you already see. You're on, basically, this is his conclusion. You're on the wrong track. He does argue in the end. There's let's say there's a road. There's a place for digital computation. There's a place for analog computation, but the actual relationship between these two, this is where we have to look for. And there's like digital twinning and all that. He kind of steps away from that in the end.
There's always a way to visualize this kind of data, and sometimes it's not always linked to computation. Mm-hmm. And Marie, I think you're also doing a lot with the visualization of data that comes through some frequencies, and like you're not a data visualizer. That's not the thing. But in your artistic practice, you give some kind of comprehensive approach of not comprehensive approach. You make visible or audible some data linked to Wi-Fi. And would you like to tell us more a little bit about this? Because this is not really analogic what you made. It's linked to a lot of hardware materials, but very small technology. Why do you do this?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So yeah, I think we're going to go back to like a lot more practice. So yeah, I'm a designer and I'm also a resident here at -1. And the project that I'm working on and that I'm kind of exhibiting downstairs deals with the infrastructure of the internet, and specifically like the kind of parts that we don't see. And I think I'm interested in this idea of, kind of being critical of technology, in kind of investigating what this technology looks like and what does it feel like, and how does it work to play, or like to understand it better. And I guess like my approach to that is to be very kind of hands-on and have a very DIY approach to it. So the project kind of originated into just kind of like wondering what's the, let's say, like, what does Wi-Fi looks like? And it's made of waves, of course, and that's like kind of the internet when we get very close. Like when we're far, it's like submarine cables and data centers. But when we get closer, it's like a router and Wi-Fi frequencies, and like it's also like the Wi-Fi is something you never think about except when it doesn't work. And so I was interested in like actually what is this, and being very kind of just diving in. So one of the experiments I did was just to set up two kind of antennas, like a router and a receiver. And then one of the things I did was just to test, like recording this signal and then trying to interact with it. So here's just me in my garden 2 years ago, just with one antenna. And so they are also like, just to give some context, so waves are physical, even though they're invisible, and they get reflected particularly with metal. So I put these devices in between like pots and pans that I had laying around to kind of try to direct the signal in one direction. And then I'm waving this kind of also metal mesh, and then graphing like how much it impacts like the signal to just kind of be able to interact with it. So I guess one of the idea was also to really dive in and like see what does it look like, what does it feel like to be in contact with this piece of technology, with this piece of infrastructure that we are dealing with every day. And this resulted in one of the pieces that you can see downstairs, which is what I call the signal theremin. So a theremin is this kind of old instrument which allows you to play with, works with radio frequencies, and then there's kind of two antennas, and then if you put your hands around it, you can control the pitch and the volume. And I made a kind of modern version of it, which works very differently, but has a kind of the same feeling, where you're like, where you can you connect your phone to this device, and then it records. It basically sonifies the Wi-Fi quality, so you hear how like the Wi-Fi signal receives changes based on the environment, and like if you put your hands or just a distance. And then what you see here, this kind of tin can gun-looking thing, is actually a DIY hack that I found. So it appears that...
Can you give the name of this?
Yeah, so this is called a cantenna. So
Thank
it's
you.
a tin can antenna. And so it's the idea to use, because actually even it's very hard to imagine because it's invisible, but Wi-Fi frequencies have a kind of wavelength that's, I think, about 12.5 centimeters. So there's the idea that like if you certain types of tin cans basically have the right size to be used as a kind of let's say cannon to send all the waves in one direction. So it like reflects within the antenna and then sends it in one direction instead of being omnidirectional. And so I've made one that kind of fits my phone and the antenna of my phone, which it's also hard to see, but it's basically, if you look at like schematics, it's around the camera, at least for the iPhone 6, which I still have an iPhone 6. Isn't that permacomputing? And that's like, so that was this thing, and now I'm experimenting with basically setting up these kinds of antennas and receivers based on like microcontrollers, which work with Arduino, which is a kind of pedagogical way of doing like playing with microcontrollers and like mini computers, and experimenting with playing with this. And I guess I'm interested in how playing differently and like playing with this infrastructure of technology shapes or like can change our perception of it.
So you have created this very funny toy that we can. I'm not saying this to diminish your work. This is actually a super toy that you can play with downstairs at -1. So to give a little bit of context again, when you direct the Wi-Fi wave to the receptor, it creates some sound, and the sound changes depending on the intensity of the Wi-Fi. And now you are trying to see, like, you have a toy, and now you're trying to create a kind of game structure around it,
Yes.
maybe. And I would like to know how you think maybe you would like to design this game structure on this toy. Like, what would be the methodology, and also why approaching this question of limitation in a playful approach to you seems to be important?
Yes, I mean, I think to kind of start with the end of the question, I mean, this practice of like looking at technology for me stems from a very personal kind of, I guess, fascination for technology, but also I guess, eco-anxiety. And so I think it starts with a lot of like negative assumption and negative things around, okay, like we are dealing with black boxes and technology is not open and we don't understand it, which also doesn't help us doing any better with how we design it. And so it comes from that point of view, and it also tries to bring some, I guess, a little bit, something a bit lighter. So I guess playing is also a way to approach which is a bit less like heavy, I guess, and saying like, oh my God, technology sucks. Or like, there's a lot of bad things about it. And I think it's also a way to be able to imagine differently. Like, it's a way of imagining otherwise. So I think this idea of like, now I think what I'm interested in is having this technology and having this kind of ways to record inputs and outputs and signals, and then imagining how, like speculating, I guess, on how we can play with it and thinking, okay, how would that change how we interact? For example, we could make a game. I've been kind of making these scripts in my head, like, okay, we make a game where we have to find the router. So we have one of these Wi-Fi gun and we are looking for the router into the Nieuwe Instituut, like where is the router? And just by kind of recording signals, or like we have to get to the next level, we have to get 20 different connections. So we bring all of our smart devices, Bluetooth headphones, smart microwaves, connected whatnot, connected Bluetooth mouse, and then we collect all of these MAC addresses, and then we can only get to the next level by like doing so. So just also like treating all of these smart things which try to remove, by being invisible, all the kind of network layers that they have, so you never actually see, and then putting this into the front row. So yeah.
Would you like to do a game jam? To like, because I think there's a few game designers in the room also that maybe would be happy to, I don't know, experiment. I think like the best people for a game jam with a toy are actually kids.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I had this thing because I had prepared some little presentation on permacomputing, but I will not do it. But it was this, I think. Yeah, this is called 0 to Infinity by Rashid Arin, and it's a work that I found at Playground in Geneva, which is a place dedicated to artists' toys, but like really like physical toys, no technology into this. And so this is not my photography, and the kids have signed things to appear on it. But this is a bunch of wooden cubes. There is basically no rule actually on this. But when I came, the funny thing that happened is that they were all inventing games with this. They were all creating structures. There is this very simple shape, and the only instruction they had, but that was not from the artist, that was from the museum, was do not climb the cubes. Limitation is like the raw material of game design. This is what we create games from. And I think maybe in what you do with this canons, we have like some ideas of the limitations and the possibilities of this. Like maybe let's not see it as canon or guns, but just try to reinvent a thing. But I'm sure that you give it to kids and they invent a game directly with it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the idea now is to open up the process again and be able to kind of make sensing devices like this kind of sensors and be able to, from that, just speculate on games or even maybe make them, but just first of all imagine them, because I think that's really, I guess the most important part is just to be able to think of these devices and this kind of web of Internet of Things, as we call it now, as like also a playground, and not only just devices that are smart and that are supposed to, like, to be able to look at them a bit differently, and to maybe even imagining. Like, this is also part of the creative process. This is just a mock-up of actually a game. So this looks like it works. It doesn't. It's actually a bunch of cans and wires and a picture and twice, and me Photoshop twice into it. But it's just like, okay, like, could we play ping pong with these waves? So I'm like I have a metal kind of racket, and I'm like sending waves from the other from one to the other. And like, I think there's already a kind of potential into just that this picture exists and that it kind of already changes how you view these objects without even having to make it work or like to compute it in a way and just like imagining. And I think that's the power of a video game in a way, and gaming in general. There's just also this imagination, and that we also all accept that we are now in a kind of fictional scenario, and that we have to imagine and like worlding this new scenario, and what does it create? And we all decide to step into this thing that we know is not reality, but tell something of reality. And I think that's it's nice to be reminded of the power of that.
The end of the iPhone 6. Well, I think, Marie, you're... is it okay? Yeah. It's not broken.
Of course.
Wow.
That's why I still have it after.
Yeah, care for the chips. I think, Marie, you're very good at concluding roundtables. That was amazing words. Because I'd like to also give some space for questions. Actually, there's a ton of topics that I thought we would talk about today. But I think it's also nice to give some room for questions, so maybe we can talk about it. Is there someone in the room that would like to ask questions to one of our guests today? Vincent. Do you?
Yeah, sure.
Amazing. You're a good friend. Vincent is the organizer of the director of Octobre Numérique Festival. He's a brother in arms.
Yeah, thank you. This is how you treat your brother in arms, right?
Throw them under the bus.
The spotlight. Yes, I have a question now. It came to my head. It's something you said to me, Vincent, like a few months ago. You said to me, like, virtuality doesn't exist. Like, virtuality is just some physicality invisible, and since we are talking about like invisible, and you said to me like, sorry, the cloud, for instance, is just someone else's computer, and I was just wondering, like, just to throw you back the ball about this, how we can play with visibility, invisibility, as you just did with what you showed us, and earlier also in -1. How we can like play with this to, like, is it important for you, like in your practice or in your curation, if I also speak with the others, to show, to I don't know, to reveal this kind of, to play with this dialectic, you know, like visibility, invisibility, considering the ecological issue that we're talking about.
Thank you for your question, Vincent.
Yeah.
Just the sentence of like the cloud is someone else's computer is not mine. It's actually Lucas Engelhardt, who is one of the people working on this permacomputing wiki that you can find on the internet and that you should consult. This is like a huge bunch of articles and design principles on permacomputing, and also one of these ideas of permacomputing is to make technology visible, of course, but not only like the hardware, but also the process of of the software that I made within this set of principles. So for examples, they have, like there is a collective called 100 Rabbits. They have made this, there are 2 pirates on a boat in the Arctic right now. And they design softwares and small technology on their boat while cruising the Pacific Ocean. And they have made this software, which is a kind of painting software, that only works on runtime. So you code a painting somehow, and it tells you how the painting is being made while it's being made. And I think it's a very good example of this, like not only showing the materiality of technology, but also like the process so people can understand it. So yeah, how do you think in your own practices that you help people to understand the process of technology?
Me?
Who wants to answer? Thank you, Sasha.
I think one of the cool way I like about showing what's really going on behind the scenes is today our modern internet is a very streamlined experience. It's very polished. You have almost no bugs. As you said, you only notice Wi-Fi when it doesn't work. And I think we should aim towards a more broken experience, and in the sense that when you see stuff that breaks, when you see the behind the scene, the behind the curtains, you understand that it's not that easy, and not just the materiality, but all the software that runs onto it, and seeing the code that the debug windows, the logs, the whole process that as a developer you go through to make the stuff work again when it breaks. I think that would be a quirky way to spread this kind of awareness that it's a really rough experience behind this kind of polished interface, and yeah, very, very bleak experience.
Is it like, because you are a student in arts at the Beaux-Arts de Marseille, and you make video games as a practice there, which we know is not always easy in France, to use video game as a medium in art schools. And do you think it's this idea of showing like the breakage and this kind of thing is something helpful for you as a students in arts, to make also maybe your medium more understood by your teachers and by the people you collaborate with? Is it something that you kind of use, that you show in your work?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I really like showing the hardware behind of it. Earlier, I was really intrigued by your antenna because it has it had the shield and the board just duct tape around it, and I really like this rough aspect of the material because first it reminds you it's really just plastic and electrical parts. It kind of removes the magic part of it.
Just to show the friends, and we can see the hardwares and things.
Saying hi to them.
I didn't want to cut you.
Yeah, there we go. And also, I really like I said earlier, I really like always implementing a log windows in my games, that even when you play it in the final game, somewhere you're still going to have a kind of reminder that the game is currently doing all of this. You're not just pressing keys and controlling a character, you're being reminded of this crude white on black text that tells you, yeah, I'm doing all of this right now, and when there's issues because I write really ugly and spaghetti code, it also crashes live right in front of the players. So yeah, removing this magic is, I'd say, the way to go, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And while cruising on the arena page that we had for this roundtable, I found this picture that was uploaded by Benjamin before, and I'm curious because there's already one picture of you pointing at some hardware to the sky, and there's this one. Like, you seem to show a lot also of the process, the technological process between your works. Could you explain what this bag is?
Yeah, this photo comes from a summer camp that I attended at the Hackers and Designers Summer Camp of 2023. It was part of a workshop run by Micah Hart, and the idea was that we had these ESP modules, which is that tiny square in the top right-hand corner of the bag, connected to a battery, which was connected to a solar panel, which effectively allows you to create a Wi-Fi hotspot that people can connect to, and then when they connect to it, they see a website that connect on their phone, like when you connect to a airport Wi-Fi, for example. And I in that moment, I was thinking about coding in situ and the situated practices and like writing code in a field. And I began writing a website about a field and then putting this computer into a field and seeing the potential of this this small amalgamation of things. The website also, by the way, has to be smaller than 1 megabyte because otherwise it doesn't work. So the whole thing became about revealing the limits and the kind of small components of this thing that also were hung in a tree in the field. And the thing that I loved about this project was because it was solar powered, I left the computer in the field overnight. And you could see its like lights blinking in the darkness, which was a really like beautiful little thing. And also you could see it like slowly also dying because the sunlight was also fading. Like the computer was also going to sleep as everyone else was going to sleep. And it became this really poetic moment where suddenly this website was, and the computer were like, they felt like beings in the camp alongside us. I don't know. It was really nice at that moment. Now I talk about it, it's a bit funny. But the bag itself, like I think in putting it in a clear plastic bag, it's part of a history of also computers where people have put things in transparent cases. Like Apple also put a lot of their electronics in transparent cases. It became an aesthetic to reveal something to the point where, I don't really know whether they were trying to reveal something that actually gave people autonomy and agency with the computer itself, but at least you could look inside and like imagine what was going on inside there. And I think there's something somewhat radical about allowing someone access into something that is not normally accessible, like an ultralight computer. So that's what this project was. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Thank you, Vincent, for this very fruitful question. Does somebody else want to ask a question?
Answer the question.
Please, yes.
Because I was reminded of the kind of the practice of the biosensor. So this luminescent bacteria can also act as a biosensor because if you cannot see the health of the ocean, but you can see whether these bacteria are there. And humans are mostly visuals. We have after birds of prey, the best eyes in the living world, and all the other senses are way less. But so if something becomes visible, we can relate to it. So your example kind of talks of that also. So there's this way of communicating with other devices that tell you things that translate one thing to another. That what talks of the dichotomy or the dialectics between the visible and the invisible. And I was actually Nicholas Nova, remember this guy, who came up with two terms that like sceneful design, that things that do not degrade gracefully, but actually show there, like here it's hidden, here it's black, here you can have access, and use that as part of an aesthetics that kind of came up. And the other situated design, he also came up with that. This is 90s. This is like the prehistory of locative media. But, sorry, that's how old I am. But but they talk of this split also. It is not that Wi-Fi is supposed to be always on. The fact that it's not accessible somewhere, these people who were called blast theory, they also use this as a game dimension. Like some places you're online, and this is certain kind of the digital part of a game would play on, but there's also hidden spots where there's no Wi-Fi, where you can talk to people and you cannot be overheard. So this, let's say, these dynamics between visual or accessible and non-accessible, that can be part of a design as well. So the presence and absence are both kind of relevant. Yeah.
I think it's also because Nicolas Nova is a researcher at the Head in Geneva, right? Yes. And he's working a lot on e-waste and on waste in general. And I think this is something that we find in all those practices. The idea of also like in L'Impasse. You have worked a lot on the idea of waste and showing it as like a regular environment and something that should be shown as what it is. Also, Marie, you work a lot on waste cans, but not only cans. You also a lot on e-waste as well, and this is. Deeply linked to this idea of permacomputing, also with the idea of salvage computing,
which is an older current, which is the idea of taking e-waste and rebuilding technology from this at some point. And I think also in your practice, Ben, this is something that we can find, this idea of showing the seams, this idea of showing what people don't want to see, because actually this is how we can reclaim technology in a way, because we know how it is, we know how to master it. So thank you very much for all these thoughts and sharing your experience and knowledge during this event. I would like to invite everybody to go downstairs to -1 and play L'Impasse, because actually video games are not visual arts, they're more on the side of performance, in the idea of experimenting a gameplay, an idea. And it's important because we've seen people play it, but it's also super nice to play it yourself. And so yeah, it's in -1 right now, and there's also a cocktail in the cafeteria. Yeah. So thank you very much for being here today.